What's going on, everybody? This is the blockchain backer bringing you the latest cryptocurrency news and analysis. Today, we've got the Bitcoin price chart fighting up against $25,000 once again to start out the new week, which is the range height that has held us down for the last 9 months. But of course, what has been exciting about this market has been not only has Bitcoin been in an upward trajectory, but we're really seeing this all across the board. The whole market is really catching these big rips of 100%. And while 2023 has just been a rock star year so far. But really the second half of 2022, we spent a lot of time looking at the altcoin market, not just here at Bitcoin. I probably annoyed people to death over the course of really the whole second half of 2022, saying the bottom was in, looking at Wyckoff accumulation happening here for the altcoin market, in which even after the FTX collapse, we were still able to hold. It's kind of the way the market works. If you remember back to being back in these times, right? Laser eyes and diamond hands, 100K Bitcoin incoming, is that we see sentiment really just kind of shift all the way to one side and stay there for a long time. And anybody who's creating, we're going to 100K content, that's where people are going to be resonating with. That's what they're going to be, polarized to. And then in this whole time period, anybody making bearish content saying we're going to go lower, people are going to polarize to that. And those are usually good signs when you get so many people swung to the exact same side. But while we've seen this low hold down in here for the altcoin market, over here on Twitter, I was posting about a different market cap called Others, which is going to be the entire cryptocurrency market excluding the top 10. So if we look at the market cap of all of the cryptocurrencies here in the cryptocurrency market, but if we take out the ones that eat up most of the market cap, like your Bitcoin and your Ethereums, BNB, XRP, Cardano, Polygon, and Dogecoin, and then at the same time, we're also removing BUSD, USDC, and Tether, which those, of course, are your stable coins. Then you end up with this chart called Others. Take out the top 10. Boom, here's the market cap of the rest of the cryptocurrency market. And of course, being over here on Twitter, being a little vague, saying, if you know, you know. Seeing the 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then getting 5, 6, back to wave 4 within wave 5 to go on and hit 7. And then, showing it actually happening right there back at the previous all-time high. And then deciding, rather than being so vague, if you don't know, here's a video I made over 2 years ago discussing crashing structures and examples, which I'm sure many of you know. We've talked about crashing structures. This is how bottoms come in. It's one of my favorite structures that I use for my personal accumulation when I'm buying the market. A lot of times these things are difficult to recognize in their early phases. Sometimes the tops will be mistaken for bull flags. Then finally the crash ensues and it's like, oh, wow, okay, things have gotten a little out of control here. Then you start kind of recognizing how these things really come in for an end in here. But this was all taken from back on January 5th of 2021. So over 2 years ago, this is when we were picking out the bottom for XRP, showing the examples of how it had done it during the 22.5 cent time period. I'm sure many of you remember that time. We showed examples of this on how during the great financial crisis, this is what the Dow Jones Industrial Average had done. How even in Bitcoin's Wyckoff accumulation back in 2015 during the spring phase, it was the completed crashing structure. And how even when the SEC sued Ripple and XRP was delisted on exchanges, that's the exact thing we had done, and that ended up being the bottom. And just showing this crashing structure over and over again and how they always work. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, rolls back up to wave 4 within wave 5 for 6, 7 is your final excess. That's the ending. Examples, 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 examples. And while even in the last 2 years, we've used this multiple times in multiple situations here on the YouTube channel, taking a look at charts and always referencing back to this. So it's nothing unusual for many of you. Then you end up with this chart called Others. Take out the top 10. Boom, here's the market cap of the rest of the cryptocurrency market. But the concept is quite simple. Once you have it really engraved in your memory, then essentially we have a 1, 2, 3, 4. And then in our biggest wave in here, we'll usually see 5 distinct waves within this bigger wave. And then we'll attempt to roll back up and usually get paused out by the 4th wave within here, then to eventually go on and set the new low. Many of you who have been around for the last 2 years will remember that we were actually even using this over here on Bitcoin back in 2021 to show that what the bull run was looking like when you look at it in its normal standard format, that if you remove that bias of thinking it's going to 100K and instead inverted it to look at it in the aspect of what would a crashing structure actually look like in here, it was that we actually had the crashing structure happening in here on Bitcoin, and that we had our 5 distinct waves down and then rolled back up to wave 4. So if you remember during that time period, my thoughts were, we're going to set a new low. We're barely going to do it. We'll poke at it twice, but then that's going to be the end of it. And, go back to your standard scale and not be inverted. That's what you end up getting. Which if we go back and live in that time period there of October 17th of 2021, visualizing how that would look, that there would be one more push, a pullback, and then one more final extension, and that's the end of the Bitcoin bull run. Obviously, no rotation to altcoins. However, we're looking at the crashing structure. We're looking at the topping structure to what we can see. These were things we were all talking about live during that moment, that this would be the end. One push, one more push, boom, that's the end. That's how this played out in here. We could see there was one push, one more push, and then that was the end. And go back there to October 17th. And remember, this is what the chart looked like at that time, thinking this is how the ending is going to happen in here for Bitcoin. However, we're not looking at this for me to be a braggart and to say, hey, I got it right. We can clearly see over here, something not quite so right over here. But the concept is to understand what was actually happening in here for Bitcoin, why there were 2 pushes in here, one attempt at a new high, one more final excess, and that's it. And how really you could determine that really also not only by using Fibonacci extensions, which we used on the market caps. Bitcoin hit a 4.236 extension. We had talked about that for years leading up to that. But outside of the Fib extensions, looking at it from an inverse perspective to understand what a crashing structure looks like and how crashing structures come to a completed ending is that roll back up to wave 4 and then the final excess. And many times what we see is we see one attempt, one more attempt, and then that's just it. It wasn't able to do anything more than that, which is what we ended up happening, or what we ended up having happen here for Bitcoin. One attempt, one more attempt, unable to do it. Boom, that's it. That was the reversal. And that was the end of the crashing structure, right? That is why the top was imagined to look like this, because this is how they usually come to an end on a crashing structure. So, okay, BCB, what's the point, man? We're now like 8 minutes into this video, man. So hear me out. Here's what we got, right? So looking at others, right? The altcoin market or the cryptocurrency market, excluding the top 10, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, with 5 waves within wave 5 to roll back up to wave 4 within wave 5 for wave 6, and then we go on for 7. And what do we see happening over here once 5 gets taken out? Do you see how we come below, one more pullback, one more excess, and then that's it? Why is that important? Let's take a look at it and let's invert it. Invert. Notice what we're looking at here, right? Going for the all-time high, the back test, one more attempt, and then failure. Does that sound familiar to what we were just talking about right now for Bitcoin when we were looking at the top, or looking at the inverted chart, looking at crashing structures, expecting one attempt, back tests all-time high, and then end of Bitcoin bull run, while using an inverse price chart, inverted price chart, and understanding we have had a completed crashing structure on this market cap with the exact same things we're looking for. One low, one more attempt, and failure. Look at it from the other direction and recognize these are the things we were talking about back in here, looking for a reversal to happen in Bitcoin by using an inverse price chart or an inverted scale chart to say this is how our reversal is going to happen, and that we've had that happen in here for the others crypto total market cap. And that this has been a completed crashing structure that has happened here for this market cap. And of course, the most astonishing thing is the location in which it has actually happened from, which is right back over here at the previous all-time high from 2017 and 18. which, as we all know, we've been looking at Wyckoff accumulation for the total altcoin market cap in here, holding the previous all-time high from 2017 and 18 as well, while looking at this from this Wyckoff accumulation standpoint and being able to hold the lows, and showing also how back in 2018 and 19 and 20, that is exactly what we looked like at our lows as well, having our spring phase. This is your C19 sell-off, slamming back down into the lows. Here we are in 2022. This is your FTX collapse, slamming back down into the lows for your final spring phase of Wyckoff accumulation happening in here. So we've been following this for quite a long time over here on the altcoin market, saying, look, the altcoin market low is in. It's been in since June. We've seen that all across the cryptocurrency market, such as things like Cosmos, Binance Coin, Doge, Ethereum Classic, Ethereum, Chainlink, Litecoin, Matic, QNT, SHIB, Uniswap, Monero, and even XRP, all being able to hold those June lows back in there. So while some stuff did go down, set new lows, you look at a lot of the stuff in the top 10, the lows have still been able to hold ever since June. We've been monitoring Wyckoff accumulation happening on the total altcoin market cap and how that's exactly how we did things to find a reversal back in 2019, 2020. This is the one we've paid the most attention to. This one, of course, comes back in here and touches the all-time high from 2018, 2017. But here we go with a different structure, not Wyckoff accumulation on others, but rather a completed crashing structure, same location happening in here for this market cap. And I found this to be even more assurance to me that the bottom is in. Even the actual reversal happening there on others is just how we were looking for, just how you get when these things come to an end, and why we're always looking at these things from an inverse perspective to remove those kind of biases that we all get, especially when everybody is swung to the same way on social media, which we all know in this time period, nobody wanted to hear that we were topping for Bitcoin. Everyone wanted $100,000 Bitcoin. Just they were looking at it from this perspective and not looking at it from a crashing structure perspective, which we were spending all of our time looking at in here all through June and July, saying this was what was coming. So whenever I'm talking about this, like we're talking about with others right now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rolls back up to wave 4 within wave 5 for 6, and then the final excess for 7. I always like to point back to the things we've talked about and the structure before, because I would consider us to be silly and that this guy's just making this stuff up because this just sounds dumb. But I always like to really go back and point it out. This is something we always talk about. We were using this to find the top of Bitcoin and to reiterate how we were looking for that for Bitcoin back then, back in the summer of 2021, if you remember, right? This is during the Elon stuff. This is during China banning Bitcoin mining. This is the chaos in there, and people are terrified and screaming, it's over. But here we are talking about this on May 27th, 2021 for Bitcoin. All this goofball stuff we're talking about here, right? So here we are in May of 2021, right? So here we are, May of 2021, looking for that to end up coming. And here's what we're saying. But I do see something else on here that also provides that extra kind of And well, it's if we look at the inverse chart of Bitcoin. So we're 1 minus Bitcoin USD, BTC USD gives us the inverse chart of Bitcoin. So rather than looking at it as it's in a bull run, it's like we're looking at it as it's in a bear market, right? And do we see anything that stands out to us in this? And for me, it absolutely does, because I see a 1, 2, 3, 4, and then what comes in here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then what happens in here? It rolls back up to wave 4 within wave 5 to create wave 6, and then what happens? What happens after that moment? We go down and we finish, and then that's the end. How far down this is going to go for this final move is unknown to me. But for those who watched the video that I posted 2 days ago, and there was a reason why I left it up for 2 days as well as not making a video yesterday, because it was a green day. I didn't think it was necessary for me to make anything yesterday, but you guys got an opportunity to view that. Those who have been around in the XRP community for a long time and watched the crashing structure of what happened with the crash with XRP, comparing that to the Dow Jones, comparing that to Bitcoin in the past on what crashing structures look like, that when we look at the inverse of the Bitcoin chart, we can clearly see the crashing structure from the inverse standpoint. And that in a crashing structure, what does it say? It says we have to go on and do the 7th wave. And as you can see, it's what we got. And again, none of this is to be a braggart. I'm not a perfect person. I can't get everything right, unfortunately. Wish I could. But if there's something that's my wheelhouse, it is the crashing structure. And I very clearly see it has happened over here on the others crypto total market cap, while simultaneously we've had the Wyckoff accumulation ending over here for the altcoin market, as we did over here for the altcoin market back in 2019 and 2020. So it's great. We can flip over to the weekly time frame. We can see the bullish divergences that have emerged here on the indicators. We can see things really ramping up here on the weekly time frame. You can see the stock RSI is just pushing real heavy to the upside. We can switch over there to the monthly time frame. We could see the stock RSI just getting started in here as all these things have flipped in here. While at the same time, even this one right here just held that 40 level right there, which is the bullish level that has to hold on the RSI in order to remain bullish. But the question becomes, what happens after we end up having these crashing structures? What always ends up occurring? Do these things just go straight back to Moontown? And the answer is no, they don't. They're usually going to stop out in here. And it's the same story we keep talking about with Bitcoin, is that usually there is an ABC that emerges in here. We see them all over the place. We did even see that emerge over here on Bitcoin when we're looking at it from that inverse perspective, that the ABC arrived when XRP had its crashing structure come to a completion and all waves were completed in here. Still, even then, after it bounced off the lows from number 7, paused out without getting above 6. And going into A, B, C. This is just a thing that typically ends up happening. So all of this, super optimistic. I'm totally in the camp that a reversal has happened here in the market. And I hate looking at like head and shoulders. They're the things that I hate to refer to because it's really the first thing that anybody ever learns when they learn how to chart. But it's really kind of what ends up happening in here. Is that we end up with our shoulder, our head, our shoulder, and then our breakout and our back test of the neckline. And so what you can clearly see happening here as well is you do see that. You see your shoulder emerging here. Now we're working on completing the head in here. And then we go on and complete the next shoulder, and then we're off. But the shoulder process in here can take a long time. If we just kind of put that out there. I mean, we're looking probably into late summer. If you know anything about crypto, summer is usually pretty boring, pretty lackluster during the summer. It's why there's that term sell in May, go away. It really, it's very rare to see a lot of excitement. The only time we really saw any excitement from the last 6 years during the summer would have been after the bottom had come in 2018. We're heading into 2019. April, it starts to ramp up for Bitcoin. Right back in here, April, then you get into May, and then you get into June. And then there you go, by mid-June, late June, boom, it just goes boring after that. That's really the only time I've seen a whole lot of excitement heading into the summer. Usually summers are a pretty big drag. And that's why we keep talking about this over here with Bitcoin as well. Talking about this over here on others. And like we're talking about over here on the altcoin market, like what happens once you get up here, right? There's one more push. What ends up happening, you can just see it just kind of drags out for quite a while, and you get way deep in there, and how long that can last, we'll see. But I know a lot of people have expectations of when prices are up, they must keep going up immediately. For me, I look at the much bigger picture on here. I very clearly see that we have reversed here in the cryptocurrency market. We've seen all the signs happening in there ever since June, since we started talking about it. And now we just have confluence after confluence after confluence showing that it has happened. But still, a reversal is a process. It's exciting. It's a sigh of relief. I would expect something like this, right? Are we going to see a ramp up of narratives happening in here? Negative narratives to get people out? Probably. As I usually do. I will do my best to absolutely ignore the narratives. But if you're not excited about what's to come, man, I can't help you. I'm excited. And I definitely wish I saw this chart in particular, this others chart. We would have talked about this a whole lot more at that time. But we were saying this is the bottom. This is the bottom during that time period for the altcoin market. But this also helps kind of paint a clearer picture on the path forward as well. So I did a lot of my accumulating there in November and December after FTX collapsed. I am done with accumulating. I'm not adding to my bags. I haven't brought new USD into this market in 2023. Really just been riding this up in here. We can see that yesterday we did actually poke above the FTX collapse level here on others. I'm still not willing to bring new USD into this market. The only time for me in particular, probably taking some profits in here and then reinvesting them back down in here, or bringing new USD back into the market during a pullback period of where we get that negative sentiment really returning back to the market and where we have people screaming for 12K again. But it'll be interesting to see how all of this plays out when it comes to macro and all that, because, well, really, the cryptocurrency market actually gave a clue to macro ahead of time, right? What's been interesting now is like macro has actually like led the way, right? We've seen the Dow Jones get all the way back into retracements as we're still waiting on the cryptocurrency market to get all of its way back up there. So I think the macro picture is probably going to be murky for some time. But regardless of how confusing macro gets, whatever the Fed narrative is, whatever the Dow Jones is doing, whatever the dollar is doing, whatever metals are doing, treasury yields, whatever it is, I still think this is really going to paint all of the picture. And really the bigger question comes in of what is going on with macro, what is going on with the bigger picture once we actually get ourselves all the way back up in there, back into the retrace levels for these market caps. And then what does our macro picture tell us at that point? Because as we all know, these are always the danger levels. What is Bitcoin telling us at this time? Is Bitcoin back in a retracement as well? And then just kind of taking it from there at that point. But whatever kind of messy picture we have going on in macro during all of this time, it's not going to influence my thoughts in here. This is my base case of the market at this point. This is my idea that I'm going with. It'll be fun to see how the ride goes to get there. So the bottom is in. The process can take a little while. The process can be rangy. And if we do end up getting kind of that multi-month ABC pullback, I'm really going to be seizing that opportunity for a big run. Otherwise, I'm already positioned for one, but I'll get a little bit more degen should that actually end up being offered. And I would totally expect that sentiment will go into the garbage can during a time like that. And we may see some crazy narratives, right? Does another exchange get sued? Does the SEC do something? I don't know. But it will probably be something that makes people very scared to buy. But as we saw, this happened right back in here, the SEC going after Kraken for staking, people screaming, we're going to 12K again, and then whoop, wrong-footed once again. So I'm going to be ignoring narratives out there as we head through the rest of this year, but I'm very, very optimistic for 2023, and I'm glad we've gotten through 2022. Those are always tough years, but let's go. But all right, guys, that's it. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up. The bottom is in. BCB says it. Till the next one, I'll catch you later. I want to thank you so much for watching. If you could, please like this video and give it a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you could be notified of when I create new content and when I go live. As always, this is not investment advice and I am not a financial advisor. But if you ever need a pick-me-up or a little bit of reassurance, just remember that the blockchain backers got your back. Have a good one.